Swimming Pools is one of Kendrick's most popular songs, with a deep message, a strong production value and great wordplay. It has all the ingredients to be a classic, and I think the message that it paints is a powerful one, that it's often overlooked at times and maybe even misunderstood. This video actually references an article on Kendrick by Hip Hop Psych, who analyze hip hop lyrics via neuroscience and psychiatry. The title Swimming Pools is all about alcohol addiction during adolescence. I'll kick it off by pointing out the album cover, a picture of Kendrick's grandfather and two uncles sat at a table with a 40 ounce of malt liquor beer just inches away from Kendrick as a child. Kendrick stated in an interview that the photo just says so much about his life and how he was raised in Compton, and the things he's seen through innocent eyes. Alcohol misuse in the family is something that's referenced in the song, as his grandfather had the golden flask. It strikes me how the alternate album cover represents so much. It's almost a snapshot of a diagnosis of where his sorrows really stemmed from. Backstroking and swimming, as the title emphasizes, is a metaphor for overindulgent consumption, but also the struggle of trying to remain afloat mentally after being consumed by the liquid, in this case alcohol. The wordplay throughout the song references shots: I ride, you ride, bang. There's always a comparison between a shot of alcohol and a gunshot, and how the alcohol is essentially destroying him. Gunshots, when not intended for suicide, tend to be from other people, while the alcoholic shots are indirectly influenced by other people. His environment growing up in Compton, aka another parallel between the two. Alcohol addiction really stems from three things, as Kendrick says: the way it feels, aka biological; to kill their sorrows, aka psychological; or because they like the way it feels, aka social. The lyrics at the start of the song with pass out, drank, wake up, drank, faded, drank, add to the tension and the general direction of the song as a whole. That the dopamine receptors in him, the neurotransmitter that regulates emotion, cognition and pleasure, is all but overstimulated and broken at this point. It's a bleak statement whereby the path of all three forms of addiction, biological, social and psychological, that he has been on has been voluntary, but also inflicted by the environment around him, as stated before. I find the statement of his conscience, aka his prefrontal cortex, speaking to him: if you do not hear me, then you will be history, Kendrick. It's a contrast between Kendrick listening to his conscience and bearing the weight of the societal pressures of the people around him. And I think this is a tough situation we can all relate to in life, when we have a difficult choice to make and the two choices we're presented with are essentially two different sides of a coin. It becomes almost impossible to make a decision that is purely objective, because you're either biased or not. While on the surface this may seem easy: yeah, I'll just choose my health and not drink. Yeah, are you willing to get shot over not partaking in so-called tradition? Are you willing to sacrifice friendships, those you grew up with no less, because you were deemed as unworthy? It's a fine line to tread. Studies have actually shown that hopelessness is strongly linked to suicide. You preached in front of 100,000 but never reached her is another lyric that reminds Kendrick of his failures to console a dying friend. The failures then spiral out of control in his mind to push him to believe that the world for him is hopeless and therefore not worth living. It's a quick study of how patients who are going through such thoughts tend to think in absolutes. Kendrick either thinks he's a success or a complete failure. Of course, this isn't healthy, and I'm not afraid to say that I've felt the same way before. However, as difficult as it is to do, the correct thing is to identify the lessons that can be learnt from the failures and push yourself to keep applying them relentlessly. It's definitely easier said than done, but applying lessons from failures is one of the strongest things someone can do. In God I trust, but just when I thought I had enough is actually a very interesting line. It's a statement of how a lot of us only believe in a higher power or God when we're in a state of uncontrollable chaos or out of desperation, that the worst fears we have are the only thing that give us faith, which on the one hand it shouldn't be, because faith is something that you should represent, not resort to. But then it also raises an interesting point on, can that even be defined as faith? Is there a correct time to pray or not? Is it that some people are only willing to admit the universe is beyond them in only very mentally secluded times. It's a rhetorical maze of questions. When he says they stomped out the homie, it's a reminder that alcohol's damaging effects do not only cause internal damage, but can cause one's mind to make choices that are often stupid and silly in retrospect. The needless fighting over women here is amplified by the lack of inhibition a lot of adolescents have in his environment. The saddest part of the whole song really is the ending when Dave dies. It's a turning point. Because while the whole song is really about Kendrick chasing Shireen and alcohol, Dave's death is the thing that snaps him out of his mad state. The irreversible actions that Kendrick and his partners took have now resulted in regret for Kendrick. It's the one thing that makes him realize he has been a slave to alcohol. What Kendrick has done here then is he has presented addiction in a way that many musicians have not done so, and over the course of the song emphasized the madness that he fell prey to once upon a time. Addiction is a scary thought, and we all go through one form or another in our life, whether we're addicted to success, money, fame. We all gravitate towards something which is influenced by the environment that then shapes us. If that's all we believe the world can offer, that's what we'll end up trying to emulate. Swimming pools then will forever be a classic because it demonstrates how fragile our minds are relative to our environment and how seemingly objective line of thinking can be broken.